Before we got to talk about one of the greatest tight ends of all time. Travis Kelce signed his contract, officially locking him in for 2026. It's actually not a one-year deal like expected. It was a 3-year deal worth $54.735 million. That can be worth up to $57 million with incentives and whatnot. 1 year is $12 million plus $3 million in incentives. For context and clarity, Kelce's contract with the Chiefs includes a trigger date next June that exists strictly for salary cap purposes.
Everyone thought this was the moment Travis Kelce would walk away. After more than a decade of dominance, multiple championships, and a legacy already secured, the expectation was simple. This was the natural end. Players don't usually stay at the top forever, and at 36 years old, the timing felt right. The physical toll, the pressure, the spotlight, everything pointed toward a quiet exit. But then, instead of retirement, Kelce made a decision that instantly changed the conversation. He signed a 1-year deal with the Kansas City Chiefs, choosing to come back for a 14th season. And just like that, what looked like a farewell turned into something much more complicated. Because this wasn't a long-term commitment. It wasn't a safe extension designed to ease into retirement. A 1-year deal does something different. It creates urgency. It raises questions. It forces people to look deeper and ask what this season actually means. Was this always the plan, or did something change behind the scenes?
The clock also is ticking on the back end of a deal, or the back end of a career. Travis Kelce is going to be 37 in October. And Jory, you're joking about like whether or not we believe these contracts. Do you play this game? Because I do. Like when you hear a deal reported, and this isn't, I promise you, as we put Ian, our friend Ian Rappaport's tweet on the screen, this isn't a shot specifically at Ian. But Jory, I know you play the same game I do, which is when you hear the initial report and Ian says 3 years, $54.7 million, you immediately go to your salary cap brain and go, all right, what actually is this deal? And the truth is, this is a 1-year, $12 million deal for Travis Kelce.
For a player like Kelce, who has already achieved everything most athletes spend entire careers chasing, coming back isn't about proving he belongs. It's about something else, something harder to define. And that's where the real tension begins. Because when a player at this stage chooses to return, it usually means one of two things. Either there's unfinished business that still matters, or there's a final chapter they're not ready to close just yet. The difference between those two paths is everything, and this season is going to reveal which one Kelce is actually on. To understand why Travis Kelce came back, you have to look beyond the obvious. This isn't about money, and it isn't about relevance. At this point in his career, both are already secured. What keeps a player like Kelce in the game is something deeper, something tied to identity, competition, and the environment he's been part of for years. Start with the connection to the Kansas City Chiefs. This isn't just the team he plays for, it's the system that shaped his legacy. Walking away from that means walking away from a culture, a locker room, and a standard that has defined his entire career. That kind of separation isn't easy, especially when the team is still competing at the highest level. Then there's Patrick Mahomes. Their partnership isn't just productive, it's historic. Over the years, they've built a level of trust and chemistry that defenses still struggle to handle. That connection creates something rare in professional sports, a sense that as long as they're on the field together, there's always a chance. And that kind of belief is hard to walk away from. But beyond relationships, there's the idea of unfinished business. Even after championships, elite athletes rarely feel done. There's always another moment, another run, another opportunity to push things further. For Kelce, this season represents that possibility.
Man, shout out to Killer Trav. Like, he deserves this. He's the best tight end, top 2 tight ends of the generation. Like Trav and Rob Gronkowski, y'all can debate it how you want to debate it. Will Kelce get the storybook ending? I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening because to me the storybook ending is Ray Lewis's last year with the Baltimore Ravens, where you ride out, you win a Super Bowl, you ride off into the sunset. It's Peyton Manning's last year with the Denver Broncos, albeit Peyton Manning didn't have a great season, 9 touchdowns, 17 picks, but you win the Super Bowl, you ride off into the sunset. I do not see Killer Trav winning the Super Bowl and riding off into the sunset. If he was going to have that storybook ending, it would have been 2 years ago. Had they found a way to beat the Philadelphia Eagles, they didn't end up doing that. Then this past year, Mahomes gets hurt. Kelce has kind of statistically been on a decline, even though he can still ball.
And that's what makes this decision so compelling. It isn't driven by necessity, it's driven by choice. A choice to stay in the fight a little longer, to chase something that may not even be fully defined yet. Because sometimes the hardest thing for a legend to do isn't winning again, it's knowing when to stop. There's one part of this story that no one can ignore, no matter how great Travis Kelce has been: age. It's the one factor in the NFL that doesn't negotiate, doesn't slow down, and doesn't care about legacy. At some point, it catches up to everyone. For tight ends especially, the drop-off can be sudden. The position demands everything: strength to block, speed to separate, awareness to read defenses, and durability to handle constant contact. Over time, that combination becomes harder to maintain even for the best players in the league. Kelce has managed to delay that reality longer than most. Season after season, he's remained one of the most reliable targets in football, consistently producing at a level that defies expectations for his age. But even then, the question isn't about whether he has been great. The question is whether he can still be that player right now.
Absolutely. I texted a source and I was like, so how real is this, both in terms of the actual length of the contract before they could just void it and not have issues, and also the actual cost? Because it's really more like that 1 year, $12 million extension. And then, hey, if you stick around, there's kind of a framework for us to figure out what makes sense. And, oh, by the way, we don't have to take the full 12 on the cap this year if we don't want to because of the 3 years. And you can have all these different elements. So I don't think anyone should take this as a sign that Travis Kelce expects to play in the NFL for 3 more years. I'm not saying there's no chance he will.
Because the difference between elite and slightly slower in the NFL is massive. A fraction of a second in separation, a small loss in explosiveness, or a minor dip in recovery time can change everything. And once those changes begin, they rarely reverse. This is where the tension builds. Every game this season becomes a test, not just of performance, but of sustainability. Can he handle the full grind of another year? Can he maintain the same impact deep into the season? The league has seen legends stay just a little too long before, players who were still good but no longer dominant, and that difference reshaped how they were remembered. For Kelce, that risk is real. Because at this stage, he's not competing to prove he belongs, he's competing to protect the legacy that is already complete. And that makes every snap this season carry more weight than ever before. Something shifted around Travis Kelce that had nothing to do with football, yet changed everything about how he is seen. His relationship with Taylor Swift didn't just add attention, it multiplied it to a level no NFL player has experienced before. Suddenly, Kelce wasn't only performing in stadiums filled with fans, he was existing in a global spotlight that extended far beyond the sport. Every game became more than a game. Broadcasts started cutting to the stands, social media conversations expanded, and audiences who had never followed the NFL were now watching closely. That kind of exposure creates a different kind of pressure, one that doesn't show up on stat sheets but still affects everything around a player. For some, this would be a distraction. The constant media cycle, the added scrutiny, and the expectation to represent both worlds at once could easily pull focus away from performance. In a league where preparation and routine are everything, even small disruptions can have an impact.
Chiefs Pro Bowl tight end Travis Kelce going to be 37 in October. Early in the season, he just signed a 3-year deal worth $55 million, thereabouts. He can make about 58 with some incentives. But I know J-Mac's not going to like that. Listen, the Chiefs are still 5th best odds to win the Super Bowl. Why? Because people are betting the Hunt family, Brett Veach, Mahomes, Kelce in a big spot, Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo. What you're betting on is their...
But there's another side to it. That level of attention can also become fuel. It raises stakes, sharpens focus, and creates a sense that every moment matters more. Kelce has always thrived in big moments, and this situation turns every game into one. The question is whether that energy continues to push him forward or slowly begins to wear him down. Because the reality is, no player has balanced this kind of spotlight before. The NFL has seen stars, celebrities, and crossover appeal, but nothing quite like this combination of sports dominance and global pop culture attention. And that's what makes this season different. Kelce isn't just playing against defenses anymore, he's performing under a level of visibility that never switches off. Every game, every moment, every result carries a larger narrative. So, as the season unfolds, the focus won't only be on what he does on the field. It will also be on how he handles everything around it. Because managing that kind of spotlight might be just as important as any route he runs or catch he makes. At this point, Travis Kelce's legacy is already secure. He has the numbers, the championships, and the consistency that place him among the greatest tight ends the game has ever seen. There's very little left for him to prove in a traditional sense. But that's exactly what makes this season so important. When a player reaches this level, the conversation shifts. It's no longer about building a legacy, it's about defining how that legacy is remembered. And sometimes, the final chapter carries more weight than everything that came before it. If Kelce delivers another dominant season, especially deep into the playoffs, it strengthens his case at the very top. It reinforces the idea that he wasn't just great for a period of time, but great across eras, able to adapt, sustain, and perform even as the game evolved around him. That kind of longevity separates legends from icons.
All right, so you want the details on this deal, like what it actually is. Again, it's 1 year, $12 million. So it's a veteran minimum base of 1.3, and then a restructure 10.3. So that gets you to 12. And then on the June 8th of next year, June 8th of 2027, there is a $40 million 2028 guarantee trigger. $40 million for 2028 trigger next summer. That ain't gonna happen.
On the other hand, if this season shows clear decline, the narrative changes. Not drastically, but enough to shift perception. The NFL has a history of remembering how players finish, and even the greatest careers are sometimes viewed through the lens of their final moments. A slower, less impactful version of Kelce wouldn't erase what he has done, but it could slightly reshape how people talk about him.
Now, the counter is, I just looked up, the history of tight ends who are 37 years old. And according to most of the data, tight ends start to decline around 32. I can't find a wide receiver over 37 who had a 1,000-yard season. 859 yards, Tony Gonzalez seems to be the...
This is the delicate balance he's walking into. Every game becomes part of a larger story about where he stands all time. Every performance adds to, or slightly adjusts, the way his career will be framed years from now. And that's what makes this decision so bold. Kelce didn't need to come back. He could have left with everything intact, with no questions left unanswered. Instead, he chose to add another chapter, knowing that it comes with risk. Because at this level, the difference between elevating a legacy and complicating it can come down to one season. So now everything comes down to this season, not in terms of contracts or statistics, but in terms of meaning. Because what Travis Kelce is stepping into right now is a crossroads that every great athlete eventually faces. On one side, there's the storybook ending, the kind where everything comes together one last time. The chemistry with the Kansas City Chiefs remains intact. The connection with Patrick Mahomes continues to produce moments that feel inevitable, and the season builds toward another deep playoff run. In that version, Kelce doesn't just extend his career, he elevates it, closing things out on his own terms with the performance that reinforces everything he has been. But on the other hand, there's a quieter reality. One where the flashes are still there, but the consistency begins to fade. Where the moments of brilliance come less frequently and the grind of the season becomes harder to sustain. Not a collapse, not a failure, but a gradual shift that signals something is changing. That's the part no one likes to talk about, because it doesn't come with a clear moment. There's no single play or game where it becomes obvious. It happens slowly, over time, until one day, the question isn't whether a player can still perform, but whether it's time to step away. And that's why this season feels so different. It's not just about wins or statistics, it's about clarity. By the end of it, we'll know which direction this story is heading. Is this the final run of a legend pushing for one more championship moment? Or is it the beginning of the natural ending every career eventually reaches? The answer isn't here yet, but this season will reveal it.